an evolving pad. This is a pad that changes in different ways continually over a long period of time. So here's one I cooked up. All right, so the key to a pad like this is two things: layers and tons of modulation. So I'm going to recreate this from scratch. I'm going to bring the original over here. I'm going to look at it. All right, and now we've got just a good old plain saw wave. So first thing I'm going to do is just give ourselves a long release. For the amp envelope, simple here. Just so when I let go of the key, it rings out. Then I want to just smear the sound a little bit. So I'm going to give it some unison. Great. Then I'm going to filter it. And this will be our first sort of slow evolving sound by modulating it with a LFO. So let's enable it. And I messed around for a little while and I just ended up liking how the 18 dB slope felt. All right, then I'm gonna take LFO1, modulate the cutoff, and I don't need a ton here, just a little bit up and down. And that's way too fast. I'm going to set it so it's not syncing to the tempo, and I'm going to make it really slow. There we go. Okay, so that's our first point of evolution, right? It's a very slow change in our cutoff. I also made this change so it always starts at the top. You don't have to do this. This is just a preference for me. I just kind of liked how I'm always getting this nice kind of bright attack on the sound. And I really want to accentuate this cutoff movement, so I'm going to increase the resonance. Yeah. There we go. All right, so there's our filter movement. Now, let's add another layer of movement. And we want it to be at a sort of a different pace so that it sort of kind of interacts with the filter movement in unpredictable ways. So I'm going to take our oscillator over here, and I'm going to switch to a wavetable. Again, I was just experimenting and I liked the way this one sounded. Right around here. Now, this doesn't sound terribly different from a saw. However, I am going to modulate it with an envelope. So it's going to route envelope 2 here. I messed around with the ranges and I liked this range. And we are going to go with, I'm going to lock this envelope so I can see all the stages. A really, really slow attack. So I'm talking about 9 seconds to get up. And then set a sustain down here. And again, our decay will be nice and long. We'll also do 9 seconds. Now what do we have? So you see, by the time it takes this envelope to get all the way up and down, for this wavetable to change all the way and then come back, the LFO for the filter kind of goes through this a little less than 2 times, right? So you get these sort of conflicting cycles, modulating 2 different things. So it creates multi. As I hold this down, it's just going to change. Even after the wavetable is right here. So it's coming back. The cutoff starts over. So at this point, the cutoff's moving up and down while the wavetable moves up and down. But now the wavetable's done moving, so now we hear the cutoff moving up and down without the wavetable movement. So we just created a very long, complex layer of change. At first, we're hearing cutoff movement and wavetable movement, and then we're hearing just cutoff movement, right? So that's 2 large stages of change. So right off the bat, we have this long, changing evolution. Okay, let's bring in another layer.
This isn't your ordinary synth tutorial. This is Syntorial, making programming synths easy with video game-like training, teaching you how to program synth patches by ear. Each lesson starts with a demonstration, then an interactive challenge with over 200 lessons. Once you complete the program, you'll be able to create the sounds you hear using almost any synthesizer. Try the award-winning Syntorial today.
Let's bring in another layer using our noise source, and in Serum, it's more than just noise. I like this Atmosphere 7. We'll track the pitch. Let's see what my setting was. 21. Oh. There it is. Okay. Now, again, I don't want this just to come in and stay there. I want to, bring this in and take it out, do something with modulation. So I'm going to route our envelope to our level. Start the level at 0. So then now, if I give it a fairly long attack, let's say this is going to be about almost 6 seconds. Now, that means we've got noise taking 6 seconds to come in versus our wavetable taking 9 seconds to get all the way to the end. So now our noise is going to come in kind of partway through this wavetable modulation. And then the wavetable modulation will continue. So let's hear that. There's the noise. Now I don't want the noise to just stay there, right? I want it to kind of start to go away, but never fully away. So that later on, it's always still kind of there, creating another layer of complexity. So I'm going to take our sustain and bring it down to about 64%. And our decay to about 8 seconds. So now, here comes the noise. Now it's going to kind of start to drift away. And there it is. It's going to sit there. So it's present, but it's not in your face. Okay, let's add yet another layer with oscillator B. And for this one, I want to make a really distinct sound that's sticking out. Bring them down a bit, filter them. I'm going to bring them up 2 octaves. And we're going to go heavy on the unison. On 6 voices, I'm going to leave it strongly detuned. Okay, now that's kind of abrasive. It's really on there, really visible or audible. So let's modulate it. We're going to take an LFO. I want to do something a little different here. I'm going to go square, and I'm going to route this to our level. And let's hear what it sounds like right now. I'm going to make it faster. Okay, now I like that, but I want it to swell in, right? again, kind of like with the other things, I don't want this to just be there right away. I want it to gradually come in. So we're going to use this LFO's rise method. And that basically, it does a fade in of the LFO itself. And so what we're going to do is set the level of oscillator B to there, the max there. Now, okay, and if I increase the rise, you'd think, okay, it's going to start quiet and then it's going to get loud. But it didn't. This confused me at first. You see, it's actually starting up here at the top. Why is it doing that? Well, because rise pays attention to where this LFO waveform starts. And it starts at the top. So that means it's going to start up here and it's going to rise like that. Right? It's going to stick up here, then it's going to gradually increase the range until it's using the whole thing. So what we want to do is, there's a few things you can do here, but I like this solution. There it is. What I particularly like about this is it almost sounds like the LFO has several fade-ins, right? You have the initial fade-in from the LFO, then you get another fade-in as the cutoff comes back up again. Rising in. And then the cutoff is increasing. And then it's cutoff's increasing again, but without the wavetable, so it makes this one more audible. Right, so there's almost 3 different stages of this oscillator B, thanks to the cutoff and the wavetable movements and the rise of the LFO. All right, let's do one more thing. Let's throw some chorus on there to kind of glue things together a little bit. Nice. And then let's do a little reverb. And I want this to be pretty heavy. I want to do one other interesting thing here. I want to modulate the reverb mix. I love doing this. It really kind of, it's an odd sort of thing that it does to the perspective. Where if we take, say, LFO2, make it bidirectional. And again, we're not going to sync ourselves. We're going to go pretty fast. Listen to what it does. I love that. It's like this dimensional pan. You know, it's just kind of otherworldly. I really love the sound of that. But again, I don't want this on the whole time. I kind of want this to fade in and fade out. And I might use rise, right? But that would only fade it in and then keep it in. I want to fade in and then fade out. This is where we can use our auxiliary source. So essentially, here's our modulation for our LFO2 to reverb wet. I can set auxiliary source to envelope 2. Now remember, envelope 2 is gradual over 9 seconds. This is what's modulating our wavetable. So now that reverb modulation of the mix will fade in with this envelope and then fade back out. So listen. Here it comes. And then it's gone. That's an evolving pad. Again, I'm not telling you what to do here. I'm just giving you examples. What you want to focus on are layers and modulation.